Welcome to Day Zero Update for June 15th, 2025. I'm your host, Chris Elogi.
I'm Brandon Perkins.
And I'm January Victoria.
And yeah, we've got another big week of news and such as we had the Summer Game Fest wrap-up stuff, as well as a bunch of other things happening, a lot of industry news.
Oh, yeah.
Some good, some
Not so good.
not good, and some that's, let's just say, stupid people doing stupid shit. We'll get to that stuff here in a bit. But before we do, we'll talk about what we've been playing, and I'll kick it off here as I've been playing more Mario Kart World. I have reached credits through the Grand Prix mode. Finished up all those, and then it opens up one more that ends in Rainbow Road, which is a whole thing. But finished that. That was a fun time. Been kind of trying to figure out what's next. I'll probably do the knockout stuff next. But I was trying to do some of the open world stuff, the free roam stuff, just kind of explore and kind of see what all is around there. And it's still not a great time for that stuff. It's not like, I feel like a thing that it could do to be more interesting is if it marked where the key switches are that you are doing. Where you run across and try and maybe quit on those, things like that, because it does let you retry them over and over again, like to get better times, I guess, but there's no leaderboards or anything for it. There's nothing like that. Not even like, hey, this is your previous time. Do you want to try and beat it? Kind of thing. So it's like really superficial. The thing they do to differentiate is instead of the switch being blue, it's gray. So it's like, yeah, a little bit different, but otherwise it's just kind of more of the same for a lot of this. And some of it relies on mechanics I either didn't know existed or haven't tried yet. Things like there's wall riding now that I didn't know was a thing, nor how to do it, but ran into a challenge that was based all around it, and the game just was like, no, you're not going to be able to do this. I think I found a way around it by essentially going around to the few like power up drops around there and just waiting until I got like the feather that would at least let me jump and skip part of this. But yeah, that game's still pretty fun. I still think there's a lot of weird choices, like maybe forgetting that certain genres have solved this, but there's a bunch of costumes for a bunch of these characters, and the weird thing is that when they list them in the character select, they're all listed as like different characters. So Mario has, I think, 10 of them. I have 9 of them unlocked. So if I sort by just the character versus just whatever the default sorting is, you'll have most of the page filled with versions of Mario. And I don't think there's any sort of stat difference between them. And it's like, there's already been solutions to this with, fighting games. Nintendo supposedly makes one that has tons of characters in it. And the screen could have been a lot better designed for this, especially as you unlock more characters. It makes the potential length of this list of characters pretty long. And it's like a thing that's like kind of annoying to see. Really should have been handled a bit better. Just let you pick the characters, then pick an outfit, then you pick out your vehicle. That would be sort of a smoother experience. But the way they have it set up here is just a little bit tedious and annoying to see. So there's that. I've been playing a game called Squeak Cross Home Squeak Home. This is a Picross game. It's on Steam and Switch. I have the Steam version. I got a code for this, so I'll be doing a review here, hopefully in the near future. But the thing that it's doing differently than like the main Picross stuff that Jupiter's been doing is that in addition to the puzzle stuff, they have kind of a a whole mouse home thing. It's a little bit Animal Crossing to it, where when you start up the game, you make your own mouse that then gets this home. And as you start solving the puzzles, they're all either items you can put in the house or clothing items that your mouse can wear. And so you're, instead of like playing, the way Picross puzzles tend to go, you're trying to figure out like, what is this thing that I'm building or I'm putting together here? Whereas in this game, you're like, oh, I'd like to have, this fridge. And you start doing the puzzle for that. And it works out pretty well. They kind of do a little bit of artistic interpretation of these objects and sort of don't always just have like a basic design as like like a fridge straight, facing you straight. It might be at an angle or something like that. So it kind of has a bit more interesting puzzle design, that kind of stuff. And once you finish a page's worth of items, it'll unlock the challenges, which then allows you to put as many of that item into the house as you can fit in there. So I didn't imported the demo save I had for this and forgot that I did that and then filled every square of the house with chairs. And so I had the annoying bit of realizing, I have to get rid of these chairs, and there's no like clear wipe option in this game. So I was basically just clicking on the chairs and removing them one by one every so often, removing like a few at a time. So it was a little bit tedious, but eventually got the room cleared out after a little bit. But yeah, in the challenge version of these puzzles, essentially is that item at a different angle from the main puzzle, so it's not necessarily just doing the same puzzle twice over. They don't show you any timer on any of these things, so it's not any sort of time pressure to this. Not that the recent Picross stuff from Jupiter has any of that anymore, but they still show a timer prominently, and when you complete all the puzzles there, it'll tell you the total time you spent on puzzles and kind of an implicit kind of extra thing you could do to try to get that time down as much as possible, like a speed run kind of thing. Whereas here, it's kind of all about the just finding the cool stuff you want to build and with the puzzle and putting in your house and kind of coming up with nice little arrangements and such. And as you go through and complete more puzzles, you'll unlock more parts of the house. So there's the place you started, then you start unlocking a more central room, and then you get 3 more rooms off to the north, east, and west ends of that room. So you kind of get a good amount of space to have your mouse buddy kind of hanging out while you're in the house. You can use your cursor to click on things and have the mouse like interact with it and all that. And I've gotten some nice things here. I have a wallpaper that is like a spaceship looking thing. So you get some nice views of space out of that, and they have items pertaining to that. Space themed items. You get some very basic house items, stuff for a kitchen, bathroom, all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, there's also color variants you get. Those are, I think, by default available to you. The other nice thing they do is every 5 puzzles you complete, you unlock stickers, which then you can apply to 3 parts of the game. One, the main menu, one, the loading screen, and one, the like puzzle screen. So you can have these different kinds of stickers showing up in those areas, whether you're just coming up with some nice design thing or just putting a mess of stickers around, like some people do with stickers they come across. And that stuff is cool. There's a lot of queer like flag stickers in there, all the various flavors of that, and so it kind of gives the game a very nice like queer vibe to it. My mouse buddy even has a rainbow bucket hat on him, so he's kind of hanging around with that sort of thing. And yeah, it's a really nice one of these games. Kind of has a different vibe than your typical Picross game because it's not just about solving puzzles. It's kind of about building out this house and these different rooms and kind of finding nice things to tie it together and all that, which is cool. Really been enjoying it. There's been a couple of issues. One is that I kind of wish, yeah, like I said, you could clear out a room's worth of items in just one swoop instead of having to click on every single item individually and then hitting the remove button. That kind of gets a bit tedious. And there's still some minor control issues where the loop around from one side of the puzzle box to the other side is never off. As far as I've seen, not often very smooth. I'm not sure exactly what the caveat is on how it works, but a lot of times it just stops on one side. I have to hit the direction button again to loop over to the other side versus having the ability to just kind of hold the button down to move across the grid, and it just automatically moves over nice and smooth. So there's a few things like that, but otherwise everything else has been a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to put some more time into this and kind of get more puzzles and all that done because yeah, it's a lot of fun. So that's been nice to see. And the last of the new games is I got a code for Hitman World of Assassination on Switch 2, which I did a stream on to kind of check more of that out, and promptly broke the game. My first time in Paris. I don't know exactly what happened, but at a certain point, the lock-on for throwing stuff or hitting people with things just stopped working, and then along with that, guns stopped working on enemies. You couldn't shoot anybody, but they also couldn't shoot me, so it kind of created this weird like Terminator situation where I could go and attack enemies directly with melee weapons, but anytime they shot at me, it just did nothing. So yeah, like enemies could hear weapons being used or see dead bodies from me, killing them or whatever, and react to that and shoot me and try and shoot me and all that. But I was able to, kill or knock them out pretty easily, which was just a weird thing. And then I noticed that the doors didn't pertain to me anymore, so I could just walk through any door that was closed, door, gate, whatever. So that was really nice as far as just being able to run through a bunch of stuff. But yeah, it definitely made it easier to complete the basic objectives in the Paris map. But as far as like trying to do any of the fun stealth stuff, this no longer pertained to the save. But I still have a hard save there, so I can go back whenever and just mess around. But it did make it easy to do a lot of the little objectives for going in all the different areas and finding specific things like that. That was pretty nice, but yeah, it was just kind of like one of those weird things where the first time playing this is just bugged out in a fun way. As far as a game I've put, a couple hundred hours in at this point, that's more interesting than being like, yeah, it works fine. And it does work fine, but I've had it crash a couple times. That bugged out. I tried the new elusive target for Lashif, which I also managed to bug out. So the way that thing works is really cool because they take the Paris map and take out all the runway for the fashion show and fill it up with casino tables for various card games and whatnot. And as sort of your role, you kind of, right, like I was able to talk to a few different characters that had invitations to the poker game upstairs with Lashif. And so you can kind of listen to what they want. One person just wants you to beat them in a game of not blackjack. I forget which one it was, but you had to go to like the cashier lady and tell her you needed to get 10 million pounds in or 10 million euros in whatever the currency. They have like the plates thing that you saw a lot of in Casino Royale. I got one of those and wasn't sure if there was like a tell of like what would the winning thing be. So I just picked a number and that lost, and so that one went out. And then I took on this other guy that was like an agent for the government who Agent 47 knows somehow. I don't recognize him, so I wasn't sure exactly what he was all about, but he wanted you to kill a specific person who was the second target part of this. But I didn't hear that part of it, and it didn't give me like any mission note of like what to do. So I was like, okay, I don't remember what he wanted, so I'll just move on. I found a third person who was a lady that was going to be up there. I just found a means for killing her without arousing any suspicion. And so you just show up and show them your invitation, and they're like, well, this doesn't have your name on it. And you're like, yeah, but I'm just replacing them. They couldn't make it, kind of thing. So the security guard takes you upstairs to the game. And sort of the bug happened as they brought me in. He kept talking about introducing me to Le Chiffre, and all that. And so I just went and walked over because I had seen the Iowa showcase where they showed off this mission. And I knew I had to go over and talk to him. So I just went over and talked to him. And Le Chiffre was talking to me, and then the guy was talking to me, the security guy. And the security guy wouldn't shut up. And by the time he stopped, Le Chiffre had nothing else to do. It didn't progress whatever he was supposed to do. So then I was just stuck there in this like blend-in animation thing. Couldn't get out, so I had to put out and restart the whole mission again. Which luckily I paid more attention to the one U.S. agent guy, what he wanted to do, and killed the secondary guy, and all that, and that made that pretty easy to get back up there. And then you kind of face and everything else worked right, and so you get to the poker game, which it's more technology wise lays down. It's all set up to go a certain way, and so you're kind of getting cards that look like they're going to be really good, and then Le Chiffre beats you. And then you find out in the process that the drink you had with him earlier was poisoned, and so you have to run to a place where they have an antidote, which in the IOI showcase, he doesn't get there. And then there's like a secondary outcome if you don't make it there in time for things, and that pertains also to parts of the Casino Royale movie. There's some torture aspects there, though I don't think it's as graphic as it is in that movie. But yeah, it's a really cool elusive target. Playing on the Switch too, I learned a lot about it, but I did not finish it because essentially you get the antidote, you come back from this break that they have, and then you talk to the dealer, and you try to bribe him, and he's very much against bribery. He's like, this is there's laws to this kind of stuff, and you just threaten him, and he's like, all right, I'll help you out, kind of thing. And so he helps rig it in your favor. And a part of the story here is Le Chiffre is working with some Russian guy, I think. And so the big money boss man wants to talk to him, and he goes over into the like attic space in the mansion. Which I was like, all right, this is gonna be easy now. I know how to kill him. But then I just lost track of which one was him. Didn't kill him. He ran away, and everybody else was aggroed and shot me before I could do anything. So that's how that ended up in an unfortunate way. But now I kind of know what's going on, so I can do it on my main PlayStation save. and get it there. Because if you beat it, you get a special like cosmetic item, I think, for 007 First Light when that comes out next year. So they're doing some of that stuff. But yeah, the game itself runs pretty well on the Switch too, as it should, because it's a PS4 game essentially at its heart. They've done upgrades for PS5 and Xbox Series X and all that. But yeah, here it runs pretty well. It looks pretty good. Maybe it doesn't look as good as PS5 and Xbox and PC can look, but for what it is, it's a pretty good value with um, all three campaigns, and I think some of the extra DLC stuff in there. I think there's still some other things they're charging for. It's like cosmetic stuff, but also some things pertaining to some of the like elusive target arcade mode things. I'm not 100% sure about all that stuff, but that seemed to be what they're doing there. So yeah, it's a pretty solid version, but it's definitely been a bit rough around the edges with bugs. I was just playing some of the ICA facility stuff at the beginning, just trying to complete all the challenges and such there, and had it crash when I started the one stage. When they sort of open it up to letting you try all that stuff. But yeah, it crashed right at the beginning, so there's no autosave or anything yet. But it was right at the beginning, so it wasn't too hard. But yeah, hopefully they iron some of that stuff out, because this is the most crashy game I've played yet on the Switch too. So that's been that experience. But yeah, let's see. Then I've been playing a bunch of demos on Steam. There's one for A World of Keflings, the classic XBLA game they're bringing to Steam. Ninja B is kind of back now in some form. I don't know how many people have returned for this. But the demo is very much, it seems like probably what the XBLA demo was. Kind of lets you do a bunch of stuff in the first world, and then you get to the teleport to the second world. And after you do a couple of things, it's like, this is the end of the demo. And then it basically, the weird thing it does, like every little thing you do, where you're like building a building and grabbing each part to lay down, it pops up a wish list the game. Demo's over. And it just lets you kind of keep doing that over and over again. For every item, it'll just break back into this, demo's over thing over and over again. And it's like, all right, I'm curious to play more of this because I really like the original game. This would certainly run well and all that. This was the Keflings games are kind of an early like automation city builder kind of thing that is all the rage on Steam now, with Satisfactory and a bunch of other games like that. So I am curious to see some more of this, but yeah, they've built their own version of the Xbox Live avatars, so that you don't have to have the game rely on that. They look fairly similar. It's just you pick options for hair color, skin color, outfit color, very basic stuff for that, but everything else is pretty much what you would expect out of this, and it runs fine. There's no real graphical options to this since it's originally an XBLA game. I would hope they maybe add a few things and maybe add direct support for like PlayStation controllers, so that we could have PlayStation prompts like a lot of games do these days. But that's that game. Let's see. Then I played the demo for Mina the Hollower, which I wasn't quite sure what to expect out of this, because it's like, it's the new game from Yacht Club Games, makers of Shovel Knight, and it seemed very much like a Zelda-y kind of game, with a bit of Castlevania to it. And that's kind of what it is. But I'd say there's also a lot of Souls elements to it.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, when you start, you're kind of on this ship with a bunch of other people, and it gets attacked randomly, and you end up on this island. And you, when you're on the ship, you get to pick one of three weapons. One of which is there's like a bladed whip. There's 2 daggers and then a hammer. I ended up picking the hammer because I thought that was a pretty good weapon. And that's a nice weapon for like some power attacks and such. And you can also, while you're holding for the power attack, you can kind of do a little dodge thing to dodge, jump around a bit. But the framework of the way the game works is kind of more of a top-down Zelda, with more gothic elements of a Castlevania to it. But yeah, you have your checkpoints that are kind of your bonfires. When you die, you go back to that, and then you lose your bones as your currency here. So you have your regular bones, and there's like a hard bone or something like that that is like a persistent currency, that you do not lose when you die. And I think you drop an orb as well that you had to pick up, sort of like Shovel Knight was like that as well, where when you died, you dropped those little bags of your currency. So you really wanted to get back to that so you wouldn't lose your currency that you could spend on things. But yeah, from what I played of the demo, there's a lot of shortcut stuff. There's if you do die, fully die, you go back to the like hollower base that Mina has, and like one of the lady people from the boat is hanging out there for some reason. There's like that kind of trope as well of having the lady at the base thing, but she's not really your guide or anything. She doesn't handle any sort of upgrades. But yeah, every 350 bones you get, at least initially, you get to buy an upgrade for one of your stats. Some pretty simple stuff there. What else? Yeah, there's not a ton of collectible stuff just yet that I've seen, but there is a decent amount of side stuff. And it has a similar thing to Shovel Knight, where there's like destructible areas where you kind of break down like a wall or something that's blocking this area from your view, that Shovel Knight had. So there's a lot of like Shovel Knight in this, but going for a different thing than like a action platformer. Though there is a decent bit of jumping, and like one of the main gameplay mechanics is you're like hollowing underground to then pop out for either to surprise enemies, or it gives you a bigger jump to get across gaps. So there's a lot of fun like ways that those mechanics are used and are kind of pushed together to challenge you in different ways. Once they start requiring you to do like the hollow jump, that makes for a nice bit of extra challenge across some big gaps. And yeah, you're kind of encouraged to explore, and you're not going to miss much if you do that kind of stuff. I think Shovel Knight kind of pushed you along, didn't really allow you to backtrack too much, whereas this allows you to backtrack a pretty good amount. But yeah, I did not finish the demo, but I am excited for that to be out in October on Halloween. So there's that. Let's see, I did the demo for Ratatan, which is the new game from the many of the dev people that worked on Patapon. It is very much that kind of vibe to it. So they have different notes that they're singing instead of Patapon. It's different thing. It's not even pertaining to the name of the game, because I think the Ratatans are the characters you're playing as, that you're controlling, that are moving around. There's like a bit of firm definition I'm still learning as I've been playing this demo. But yeah, it's got some neat elements. It's a roguelite version of Patapon. So in kind of modern Patapon or modern roguelite, way those things tend to work is you're moving between rooms, and after you generally have like one big fight against a number of enemies, you get to the end and usually pick one of two like rewards you want from the next room, which can be either like currencies that are used between runs, or currencies that you use in that run, that you spend at a shop, where you get options to unlock more of the Kobun, which is what the little creatures you're controlling are. You can get health items out of that, or you can just say like, "Give me a strong enemy," and we'll do that kind of thing. So, yeah, there's 4 characters you can play as here. They have different stats to them. I picked the one that had the most HP, so that was also the slowest character. But yeah, they have multiple options for displaying the note stuff. Whereas they have the classic, like it flashes the edges of the screen. But the like modern version is you have like a note field that it's scrolling. You have like a pink bar that's scrolling as you're supposed to hit the notes, kind of stuff. And so you want to hit the buttons that correspond. Which the option I had on is to show all the different moves and such you can queue up for that. So there's like an attack one. There's one for having everybody jump because some enemies shoot like a big beam kind of thing. There's one for rally, which is to have all of your Kobun follow you around. There's 2 for skills that use up a mana bar. So yeah, and they do not have a. Thing that I would really like to see is listing all the health for your Kobun on the side of the screen. Because when they're kind of doing their thing, you just see a mess of health bars. And so I feel like at a certain point in a lot of these stages, either it's probably mostly because I'm not playing super well, but their health would be in sort of either at half health or below. So if they die, they just respawn with half health, something like that. So yeah, you're kind of trying to go as far as you can in the run. I've beaten the first boss pretty regularly, in sort of like a Hades kind of fashion. It kind of acknowledges that you're playing it a little bit, though I haven't seen it change up too much. The first boss that at least I was facing was like a hermit crab that his shell was a big pirate ship. That was kind of really awesome character model there. He can really fuck up all your Kobun pretty easily if you're not paying attention. But yeah, I did not get to the second boss, assuming that you can get to a second boss here in this demo. But yeah, you're kind of playing along, trying to get the various crafting currencies, because when your run ends, you go back to your home base. And usually over the first handful of runs, it'll open up more shops and such that you can do things at. So from there, you can sort of in Petapon fashion, like outfit your troops with stronger weapons and such. And in sort of modern parlance, you open up a shop that you can essentially feed weapons into the other ones to make them stronger and level them up. So you kind of, because it doesn't necessarily tell you while it's happening, but you do pick up at least a handful of weapons per run, from what I've seen. The problem I have with the feeding into other weapons is that you can't see the perks that are on these weapons. So if you have weapons that are blue color or up, they have usually some sort of stat perk like increased attack or increased HP or something that'll benefit your character. But in that screen, you can't see any of that. You can just see that it's blue. And I feel like that's something they'll tighten up because it's going to be out in early access in July 24th. So I think that'll be something that they will hopefully address by then, if not sometime before they go 1.0. But yeah, there's different shops there that have a lot of like crafting things. They'll have bonuses. They'll say like, oh, if you have X amount of this thing, like this donut, you can craft this thing that'll give you extra stat bonuses, or some of them are just bonus UI stuff, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's got a lot going on like between runs. I'm curious to see how that evolves with the early access. But since I backed that on the Kickstarter, I'll probably be getting that here next month, so I'm looking forward to having some more of that and having more, consistent progress with that. They do have online co-op without the 4 players. You can play with friends if you want, or you can, stick with what you have. But yeah, it's a nice game. It's still challenging, especially if you're not able to read what's going on and have the perfect responses to keeping your dudes out of trouble. But yeah, that's been fun. Let's see what else I've been playing. I played a Baby Steps demo, which is the new game from Bennett Foddy and I forget the other 2 people. Let me see here. Yeah, it's the dev that made Ape Out. I think it's Gabe Cuzillo, and then there's one more person that also worked with. It's a woman named Maxie. She also worked on Ape Out as well as worked with Bennett Foddy on some of his games. So, kind of 3 people that have worked together for a number of years, and I found this demo to be really fun the way it's working. Because you're playing as Nate, who is kind of a guy who is just lounging around his parents' basement in a onesie, like playing games and eating Chinese food and all that kind of stuff. And as the way it introduces the game, um, the parents are kind of calling Nate up for dinner or for a meeting, essentially tell him that they want him to, get a job and get out of the house in the near future. But before he can really do anything, the TV starts acting weird. And he gets zapped and sent away to some other world kind of thing. And so, yeah, this he ends up landing in this big puddle inside of a cave. It's kind of not really drowning, but the way that the game introduces the controls to you is that it has you kind of using the left stick to move, and you do that, and he just falls over. Because the main way it controls is kind of similar to games like QWOP, which is a Bennett Foddy game, where you are using the left stick to kind of move your like torso forward, and the right and left triggers to move your legs forward. And so you're kind of, uh, at least initially, you're going to fumble around a lot and fall over as you kind of get the hang of things. I played the demo a couple of times because I enjoyed it so much. But you're initially going to run into a point where you're going to automatically fall over, and you run into this guy named Jim. And the way the dialogue kind of works out here is it's very Rick and Morty esque, where you got the fast talking guy Jim, who's like, "Oh hey, what's up? What are you doing?" And you know, keep talking like this, and Nate very much is like fumble around with his words in a very kind of Morty way. Um, and you're like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm just gonna keep walking here," and walk out of the cave, and he runs up, catches up to you again, is like, "Yeah, I noticed you don't have shoes. I can help you out and get shoes and all this." He's like, "No, I'm okay. That's how I prefer to do things," and kind of shoo him away because he's just very awkward about this. And so you can kind of walk around a good bit, though. From what I figured out, is that the world, at least in the demo, kind of repeats itself. So if you like, I went out the cave and started walking off to the right direction. That eventually will get you back to the cave. So it kind of loops a bit here. And so, like in the demo, you're basically doing the first chapter content, which is you getting up this big hill to this campsite that is up there. And initially, you run into this dude who runs like a shoe store of sorts, a shoe merchant, and it's very much, well, I could use some shoes. Can I have some shoes? And he's like, "Oh, you need some shoes?" I couldn't tell, like joking with him, and you could see his feet. But then they're having a little fun conversation where then he realizes shoes are too big that you have. And he's like, "Well, I'll circle back and come back to later, see if you got better shoes then," kind of thing, and just has them run off, and it's a really weird and really kind of funny game that I'm really enjoying. So I'm looking forward to playing some more of that. I think that's out September 8th, so that'll be fun. That's PS5 and PC for that one. Let's see, I played the demo for Mio Memories in Orbit, which is a 2D Metroidvania. Yeah, you're playing as like an android that is exploring this big, almost like robot society, but that has had things go wrong. Robots are in disrepair, and a lot of the infrastructure robots are kind of also in disrepair, and so like a lot of doors don't work and all this kind of stuff. So you're exploring, trying to figure out what's going on and all this. And the developer for this made a handful of years ago a game called Shady Part of Me. So this kind of has a similar art style to that, or kind of has like a maybe like a hand drawn kind of look to it. There's like a good bit of that kind of texturing to all the art. But yeah, it's got a bit of vibes of Hollow Knight and some of the other kind of big Metroid games out there. So you have some like Souls elements where if you die, you kind of respawn back at your base. Though I don't think you drop any of your currency. It just becomes, or no, it goes to one of the this pool thing that you find that sort of helps give you a map. Once you get it filled enough, either you die enough or you collect enough of the currency that you drop when you die. You can just deposit it in the pool, but you can also crystallize it so it doesn't disappear when you die. There's needs a bit of combat to it that takes a bit of time to get the hang of how to deal with certain enemies. Some explode, some have big hammers that hit you. You can only take like 2 hits before you're about to die. So it's fairly unforgiving at first, but in sort of the Hollow Knight kind of fashion, you unlock these like perk things that you can equip, like the pins in Hollow Knight. Some that are kind of maybe even like Symphony of the Nights are UI based of like show enemy health bars when you're attacking them, that kind of stuff. Where I was at the end of the session, I was playing this. I was unequipping that one to equip another thing that would give me another chunk of health to it. So you kind of have a lot of that kind of stuff to it. Seems like it has a nice little story to it so far. I'm curious to play more of this. This doesn't have a date yet, but I believe this is going to be on everything: PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC. So there's that. Then I played the demo for Morsels, which is a game from a studio called Furcula, Furcula. This is a studio, I believe, led by the artist that worked on Nidhogg 2. And so it's kind of all that kind of weird, goopy art that Nidhogg 2 had. And it's kind of a roguelite that I would say is inspired by a lot of the nonsense roguelites, like Nuclear Throne, The Binding of Isaac, Spelunky, stuff like that, where there's just a lot of trial and error as you're like, I don't know what this is, what these objects are. There's enemies you may not know, enemies, that kind of stuff. So I spent a good bit of time just dying a bunch because I was just figuring out how things work. You get XP for your runs that adds up between them, depending on the difficulty. They have a base difficulty, and then there's an easier version of that. And even for being easier, it's still fairly challenging. So it doesn't necessarily go easy on you. It just maybe gives you an extra heart of health, so you get a little bit more leeway on that stuff. But the enemies still, I think, hit the same and all that. It's just going a little nicer on you. And yeah, like it has a lot of weird elements, like a Spelunky. You want to find the exits, and then from there you kind of like want to go back because there are items you'll find that you want to take to the ladder to the next area that will be collected. Essentially, like there's a card I found. There's like a doll, sentient doll of sorts that you kind of carry over there. There's maybe a few other things that you can carry over. I don't know necessarily what you get out of it because it's not necessarily spelled out up front, but it has a lot of interesting mechanics like that. And like Spelunky, if you spend too much time in a stage, a ghostly figure, this time it's a snake that kind of slithers in your general direction. And that thing can go between obstacles and such. So yeah, you're kind of navigating these environments, killing enemies. The big thing is you're a mouse that is, looking for scraps in the sewers, and you learn the ability to transform into a morsel, which initially you get two options for that, which is either merging with a plant that can kind of do a spread shot in like a dual stick shooter kind of way, or I forget what the other one is. I think it's like a little glob of poop, something like that, that shoots sort of straight shots, like a bunch of shots in quick succession kind of thing. It gives you like a little book cataloging all these creatures and what their specialties are and all that kind of stuff, and maybe some tips for what they're good at. They all have special abilities of sorts, so I think if you play with them more often, it'll maybe improve what that character can do, kind of thing. Let's see. I'm under the impression you'll collect multiples of those as you go, but from the bit I was playing, where I was like maybe getting past that first stage, but dying in the second stage. I don't really know the extent of the way it goes, but it has some really good vibes and all that going on. That looks really interesting for one of these, and it's got some wild stuff going on that I am really enjoying. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and that's out later this year. I think that's PS5, Switch, and PC that'll be on. So there's that, and the other demo I was playing is a game called Consume Me. This was in the Day of the Devs showcase. This is from a two-person studio, I believe, that is led by a woman who essentially made this game that is sort of semi-autobiographical about her experiences as a teenager that had developed a eating disorder, sort of went on like crash diets and that kind of stuff, and she's Asian, so there's like an element of like the tough Asian mom who, like at the beginning, you go to eat breakfast, just kind of put some stuff on your plate, and she just starts criticizing her for how fat she is and all this, and how much she would be more likely to get a boyfriend if she lost some weight, like this other girl that she knows that she's praising in front of you, all that kind of stereotypical stuff. And later on, she does a whole thing where she's criticizing her daughter for how lazy she is and how is she going to find a boyfriend or survive in the real world being this lazy. Which she's like, it's summer, I don't have to do anything like that. So the whole thing is she's like criticized by her mom like this, and she kind of internalizes that as like, oh, I need to lose weight, and kind of does all this with her mirror self as she goes to the mirror and like imagines the mirror version of herself being super mean to her about needing to lose weight, and kind of comes up with this plan for losing weight by the to where she would be measured on the scale and see if she improves, loses some weight and all that. And so when you go deal with the food stuff, they don't show calories. I think in original builds they did, but they don't want this to be like a thing that encourages anybody to do this kind of stuff. So they obfuscate that, as well as the scale. It basically just shows a bunch of random jumbles of numbers and letters, and then just gives a thumbs down or thumbs up depending on how she interprets the weight that is shown on there. And so in like a Persona fashion, you're kind of presented with times that you can decide what you're going to do, and you get options for that, which all end up in different kinds of mini games. When she goes to do the exercise thing, in kind of fashion of somebody that doesn't know how to exercise, the way that mini game works is essentially you kind of flail your head and arms in different areas and try to match them up with these like spots for your hands and head. And just try and keep doing that in different positions. So it's like, yeah, this kind of seems like what a newbie would think exercising might be. Like the food mini game involves a plate that has a bunch of these, like this grid, and a bunch of these spots that are hunger spots that you want to fill up with food, and the food will show up in different like Tetris style shapes. And so you're trying to fill up as many of those as you can while also keeping it under the bites limit that you have for the day. And so it's from what I saw, it's like just having like lunch and that's it for food for the day. You're trying to keep the bites under the 500 limit for that. And in a funny fashion, if there's like real bad foods that show up randomly, like cookies or something, you can give that to the dog. The dog will just show up off the side of the screen, just like, here, take this, and you spawn in another food that might be better for you, kind of thing. That's costs less bites and all that. So there's a lot of little funny elements to this for a thing that is a very dark thing, like these kind of crash dieting and eating disorder stuff. And so yeah, along the way you kind of earn some money doing chores for your mom. You can spend that either going to the store and buying snacks and such, or buying magazines and books and such. So like your mom takes you to the store initially and it's like, oh, can I get this magazine? And she's like, sure, if you get a study guide too. She wants you to study and get your grades up for next year, kind of thing. And the way the reading is done is really interesting. So she has like the book kind of spinning around her, and your her head is kind of also spinning, but can be in the opposite direction. So you're trying to line up the vision cones with the book. And when that happens, you're kind of hitting the button to reverse her direction like a bunch of times to keep it in that tone with the book kind of thing. And so, yeah, there's lots of little mini games for these different activities. You're trying to fill out the time, but also manage bars for her mood, her stomach, her like hunger feelings, and I think she has like an attention bar or something like that. There's 3 bars. I forget what the third one is, but you're trying to make decisions to benefit at least one of these. But sometimes you're kind of forced into situations of like, well, I guess I need to do chores, and none of these really benefit me, but this one maybe does the least amount of damage, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's got a lot going on, but it's a really interesting game that tackles this kind of subject in an interesting way. So yeah, that one seems really neat, and that'll be out later this year at some point. Then the last one I played a little bit on my Steam Deck demo for Clover Pit, which is was on one of the showcases, the indie showcases. Essentially, you're locked in this room. It's kind of has PS1 level graphics on things, but you're given some money and you need to spend it on this slot machine that you gather at some point. There's some demonic stuff going on here. But the money you earn, you're kind of depositing back into your bank account because for each round you need to hit a certain amount of money deposited to pay back whoever's responsible for the situation you're in. You get tickets in response for paying for the slot machine, which you then can buy some like charms that will potentially improve your odds of getting better payouts from the slot machine. And then there's also a bunch of other interactable things in this small space. But if you survive the first round, the the goal that you have to pay off for the next round goes even higher, and so you're kind of putting money into that. So there's interest that you get paid back every after every session with the slot machine, and yeah, it just kind of ends up this kind of whole weird nonsense thing that's got some spooky elements to it. And it's pretty fun. So that's supposed to be out later this year at some point, and I think that's just on Steam. So I'm curious to play some more of that. But yeah, that's been what I've been playing. How about you, Brandon?
Yeah. So yeah, I've gone back to playing Blueprints again, and I've made some progress. I finally got to the antechamber for the first time, which in and of itself is kind of a big deal because it's not easy to get to. Only problem is that you can't actually get into the antechamber proper because all of the doors to it are sealed off, and the mechanisms to open those doors are all hidden away in various other floor plans. So I was like, well, shit. But I did manage to, through a few other runs, I managed to make some progress in some other areas. For one thing, I finally got the foundation, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's the foundation to the house. Once you actually put it into the floor plan, it is there forever. It is permanent. And if you get to if you manage to make a room that has a door that leads into I believe it's the western facing wall. I could be wrong. Once you go into that room and go to the door that typically when you do like a room that's closed off like that, it's sealed off. In this case, you will find a hand crank that if you crank it, it will bring up this elevator that comes up from this hole in the ground, and you go down there and it will lead you down into the basement. The basement, unfortunately, of course, is sealed off because there's a special key that you got to find in order to open it up. But at the same time, I have gotten some new floor plans for some new rooms, one of them being the pool area. And the cool thing about the pool area is that if you use the pool area, you've got access to a couple of other floor plans, one of them being the pump room. And with the pump room, you can actually control the amount of water that's flowing into the various rooms, like the fountain, for example, that's out back in front of the house. And if you do that, after you make a wish, throw a coin into it, not only do you get that coin back, you can actually go down this stairwell and you'll find yet another door to the basement. So far, I've been finding all of these, it's fascinating, like how deep this game constantly keeps going. It legitimately amazes me. And also it amazes me is how both complicated and yet not complicated some of these puzzles actually are. Usually a lot of the solutions for them are actually hiding in plain sight if you're paying attention. But at the same time, there are ones that come off as kind of can seem kind of esoteric, at least at first, but God, yeah, that game is amazing. But on top of that, I've also started playing Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which is it was one of the games that is available on PS Plus. And this game is essentially like a spiritual successor to the Jet Set Radio series, where you're only it's a bit more, I guess, vaguely cyberpunkish in the way it goes about it. But if you remember playing how Jet Set Radio worked, you're a member of this graffiti crew and you're going around, tagging walls in various areas, and you're having to avoid the police once you get heat on you, while at the same time you have to avoid Well, not in this case, at least starting out, you're actually trying to attract the attention of rival gangs. The big difference this time, though, is that unlike in Jet Set Radio, in Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, you actually can attack. You actually have offense that you can use. It's not exactly the best offense in the world, at least not starting out, because it's kind of clunky. But you're not like at the complete mercy of the cops like you are in Jet Set. You're actually able to fight back, and in fact, there are boss levels that you'll encounter. But other than that, like if you remember old Jet Set Radio, you've pretty much got an idea. I will say the big difference between like this and the OG Jet Set Radio is that doing the graffiti is a lot easier. It's a lot more forgiving than it was the first time around, and it's also you get a lot more choice going in at first too, and you collect new graffiti as you go along. But on top of all that, I also have been playing the Mina the Hollower demo, much like Chris, and I've played it a couple times now. The way this game has been promoted, you have this idea like, oh, this game is basically like Castlevania because you got like a whip and everything, which is true. You've also got, the candelabras and stuff that you can whip, and that'll get you stuff, and there's the overall sort of gothic feel of everything. But the thing is, what they don't tell you is starting out, when you start the game, you can actually start out with one of 3 different weapons. You've got the whip, of course, and that's more or less like the medium sort of equal stats type of weapon, but it's not the only one you can get access to. You've also got a pair of daggers that you can use that, although it's underpowered compared to the whip, you can actually use them to attack very quickly, so you can get a bunch of attacks in very fast compared to what the whip is. And the opposite spectrum, you've got a Warhammer that you can also get, which attacks slowly because it takes a while to wind up, but it's like a third powerful. It's like a third to like twice as powerful as the whip is. But yeah, the automatically already I can tell you, like, if all the game is going to be like this game is going to be amazing. Just right off the bat, it's incredibly fun. It's also very challenging. You would not, the game is quite challenging. It's got. I would sort of compare it to like, it's got a mix of like Zelda, but it's also got bits of Bloodborne in it too. Specifically when it comes to like getting life back, because much like in Bloodborne, where it rewards aggression, other than unlike Dark Souls, which rewards defense, because when you're attacking enemies like after you've lost health, you can slowly build your health back, essentially build up like the amount of health that you missed, that you lost, and then you can use the power up that you need to heal yourself, and that will you'll get all that life back. Compared to like if you don't do that, you don't get as much back. Also, much like Bloodborne and honestly other Souls, like, it has a kind of bonfire type feature where, except in this case, it's like going down into like a hole, because the game is called Mina the Hollower because Mina herself is a hollower, meaning that she actually digs around like a gopher, and you go down her gopher hole and it'll lead down to basically a mana pool that'll let you regenerate all of your health. As well as some other stuff that you're not using yet in the game, really. That'll probably be for later. But let's see. And then there's the jumping stuff. And Chris, I don't know if you had as much an issue with the jumping stuff as I did. Most of it was pretty solid, but when it came to like moving platforms and stuff, it did feel kind of floaty. And there's this second part of it too, because there are gaps that are like twice as long as what you normally have to do when you're jumping, which means that you have to use your hollowing ability so that when you jump out, you have like a stronger jump. It's okay for the most part, but there are parts of it where it feels rather inexact. And in a game like this where you have to be inexact, where being accuracy is kind of important, can be a bit of an issue. But that's just me. But yeah, that game is incredible, and it's probably going to be definitely. I mean, if what we know about Yacht Club so far, the game's probably going to be amazing right out of the gate when it comes out. But yeah, that's what I've been playing. So, Dan Rub, what about you?
Yeah, obviously, I just got back from Summer Game Fest, so I've been playing a mix of different things, but I'll just go ahead and talk about what I'm playing primarily first. First, of course, is Mario Kart World. Got it Switch 2 last week. Did not play it as much as I wanted, obviously, because of Summer Game Fest happening literally the next day. But yeah, like so far, I've had a lot of fun with it. I rolled credits last night by finishing all of the Grand Prix. Played with my girlfriend, and it was really enjoyable. And yeah, like as far as just the way it looks pretty pretty flawless. I don't really have a hand for the course design yet, but I'm really enjoying the whole the grinding mechanic. That's really fun. And there's one item that I'm still trying to learn how to figure out the best way to use it. There's the feather from Super Mario World, and this allows you to like jump higher. I think the purpose of this item is to like be able to jump on a rail, because not every rail is going to be accessible. But when you do grind, like it feels good. You get a burst of speed and all that, and yeah, really enjoying it.
It's good for jumping out of the way for red shells that are coming after you.
Interesting. Yeah, did not know that. So that's pretty cool. I'm also really enjoying Knockout. It's definitely a little difficult. I don't have too many golds on that one yet. But yeah, like whether it's multiplayer or by myself, I definitely feel the Mario Kartiness of it all. I think I prefer it with friends. That way, like if you can't get first, you might as well be able to have your friend get first, so you can get the gold that way. But yeah, it's really fun. I've been playing it with people my age. I've been playing it with kids in my family, and yeah, it's been a really enjoyable experience. I have not dove into free roam yet. Obviously, like a lot of publications and reviews are talking about it being fairly barren. I haven't gotten a chance to try it yet, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying my time with Mario Kart World, and for the record, I did buy it as part of the bundle. I did not buy it separately. I do plan on doing that in the future, but not right now. I'm also playing Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster. Square sent me a code the day after the Switch 2 came out. And yeah, if you've played Bravely Default, it's pretty much the same thing, just prettier. I don't know if I call it HD though. Like it doesn't look that much better. I mean, it looks better in the sense where like yeah, you're playing with a bigger handheld and it looks solid on a TV. But I wouldn't really call any of these HD or 4K textures. But it's pretty nice to see regardless. All of the stuff that was done via Street Pass is now done online based on people's logins and whatnot. So if you've played Bravely Default, what is that, 2 or 3? The game that came out a few years ago, it's done pretty similarly. And yeah, really enjoying it. As far as I'm concerned, Bravely Default 1 was the best in the series. So I'm looking forward to putting more time in it, but I don't have much to say about it yet. And then finally, prior to the podcast, actually, I just finished Act 2 of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. The end of Act 1 was definitely something, and then the end of Act 2 was kind of, I don't want to say it was obvious, but I had an idea that would happen, primarily because I knew there was an Act 3 coming. So I was like, all right, we can't really go all the way over here and just, be all happy dandy, especially since this game is just dark the whole way through. There really isn't much to smile about. Like, that's kind of one of my complaints. Like, the game is beautiful, but it's like dark the whole time. Your entire party is always dirty or bloody or whatever it may be. And like, I'm not saying like that's a detriment, but it's definitely a downer. It's kind of like what Chris said a few years ago, like during COVID, like he didn't want to play Last of Us Part 2 because it was already like a rough part in life, and just adding that to the game or adding that game to your arsenal with everything going on was just rough. So yeah, but that being said though, that dungeon was ridiculously long. I think I spent like 3 hours in there, and it was just off-putting because most of the dungeons in the game, at least that up to that point, were 15, 20, 30 minutes long. So all of a sudden playing a dungeon that's 3 hours, it kind of felt like the last dungeon in Trails. Like Brendan knows what I'm talking about. It's like you can go ahead and fly through, and then all of a sudden you get to the last thing, and like not everything is a boss, but at the same time, it's like there's so many enemies in there, it's kind of hard to keep track. But that being said, I finally gotten to a point where I feel like I'm solid at the battle system now. Obviously, like you do have to really understand your enemy movements in order to counter everything. But once you're able to just fight things and then all of a sudden save it and then all of a sudden respawn the enemies, then it's good practice moving forward. Not to mention just mixing around your pictos and spells is a pretty cool thing to do. One thing that I haven't figured out yet, because I've seen it from other people, is that they're activating more than one picto. I guess I just don't really know how to level those up. I guess I'll look that up. But yeah, other than that, it's fun so far. I'm about 25 hours in. I don't know how far I am from the ending, but I'm looking forward to finishing it soon because I just have a lot of other stuff to do. I'm tired of putting this game down because I feel like whenever I put it down, like it gets worse, and I don't want it to happen because I know it's really good. Anyway, just to jump into a bunch of the Summer Game Fest games that I played. I'm not going to talk about them all. I'll go ahead and talk about what's on the site right now just to give people an idea of what's going up. The first one I'm going to talk about is Dosa Divas. This preview isn't up yet, but this is from the same developer that brought us Thirsty Suitors last year. And yeah, like this game is really solid so far. It's coming out next year, and it's an Indian JRPG. I'll just go ahead and say it that way. The battle system is very similar to what we're seeing out of Paper Mario and Clair Obscur. You know, there is a dodge system. There is a system where you can sort of an action timing thing where you can go ahead and add more damage to all of your attacks and learn about what your opponents are doing. It's pretty cool, but all of these are actually tied into food. You play as these characters whose sort of evil sister is running a fast food empire, and you want to be able to like bring flavor and good food back to this town that you're in. It's very different in that regard, but I'm loving the emphasis on food. You know, a couple of years ago, Venba was another primarily Canadian Indian game about food, and I'm loving just that that point of it. Like Indian food's one of my favorite foods, and just playing this is pretty awesome. The visual style is very indie, very colorful, and yeah, this one's solid so far. It's coming out next year. I'll have more in the preview as it goes up. Next up is Luminous Arise. This game was announced last week during the State of Play, and yeah, like it's Luminous. The main thing is if you've played Tetris Effect, then you know what's going to go on. Like Tetris Effect is just Tetris with like crazy graphics, and visuals, and sound design and music. And Luminous is just like that too, except that, you know, I don't want to say it really adds anything extra because just the whole presentation just changes the entire way you play. But you know, just having the timeline and having to be able to drop your boxes to the beat to form those squares matters. The big thing here is the burst mechanic, and basically when you use your burst, you can save your squares on the grid, and this allows you to, you know, kind of slow down and create bigger squares for a bigger combo, or it allows you to just, you know, freeze one side of the grid and just go ahead and focus on the rest. That being said, it's easier said than done. You know, it's really easy to have one mistake in Luminous totally screw up your grid and screw up your combo, and like that's the beauty of it. And then, you know, when you go from level to level, and all of a sudden the colors and the squares look different, they might even be different shapes, it kind of throws you off, even though like you're playing the same game. And that's really what makes these enhanced Tetris and Luminous games like so much better, just because like, all right, like, you know, you're playing the same game, but we're going to go ahead and make things different to go ahead and screw you up. And I'm totally loving that regard of it. This game is coming out in the fall. There's no date for it yet. Next up is Shinobi Art of Vengeance. This game is one thing that I've been looking forward to the entire time. As soon as Shinobi was announced last year, I knew I wanted it. I am a huge Sega Genesis guy. You know, ninjas and 90s, that was my jam. The main thing though is as much as I really enjoyed Shinobi, it might be divisive. You know, if you've played the Shinobi games on the Genesis, they were pretty much known for precise platforming and throwing ninja stars and shurikens. Shinobi Art of Vengeance is a Metroidvania. So you'll be like running around, mainly focusing on melee attacks with your sword as Musashi. And there will be areas where you can't really go through until you get better moves. That being said, though, like the precise platforming is definitely still there. Projectiles not as much. Like I in my preview I talked about Shinobi really being more like Mega Man than anything else in the past. But yeah, it doesn't feel like that anymore. But in my opinion, it's a solid not really upgrade, but it's a solid modern take on what Shinobi can be now. I haven't played the Ninja Gaiden Ragebound demo yet, so I don't know how different these two are. But so far, I'm really enjoying this one. It's from the same people who did the visual style for Streets of Rage 4, but they didn't do any of the combat though. So this one is Sega through and through. So that's one thing to take note of. This one's also coming out later this year. The other game I played out of Sega was Sonic Racing Crossworlds. During the Summer Game Fest showcase, I didn't really pop for anything, or like I wasn't really like super excited about any of the new announcements, if there were any. But if there was anything that made me noisy, it was the fact that we saw Ichiban Kasuga and Joker in Sonic Racing. So that made me more excited for my appointment. Unfortunately, they weren't able to use. They weren't usable in the demo that I played. That being said, like if you've played a Sonic Racing game in the past, like yeah, it'll look exactly like Mario Kart, but it definitely plays a lot more different in that regard. Drifting is a little bit different. There is a tiered drifting system where you want to be able to drift as long as possible, but you actually see like a visual 1, 2, and 3 to see how fast your boost would be. Another thing Crossworlds does different is because you go in the air and by sea, and yeah, you do that in Mario Kart, but you actually see your vehicle change. So that's something that Transformed did, and they bring back in Crossworlds. One similarity, but another thing that separates it is the fact that you have these warp rings that'll pretty much just warp you onto a different course. So whereas Mario Kart allows you to drive from one course to the other, Sonic Racing Crossworlds has these rings that'll make you all of a sudden just warp there, and it's very reminiscent to what we've seen in the movies, and it reminds me of how the rifts work in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. So yeah, it's definitely a cool use of the technology, and it was really, really solid. So I played that on PS5. This is going to be available on current and last gen platforms. But yeah, like so far it's looking really good, and eventually when this game does come out, I am looking forward to using a bunch of the other crossover characters. Next up is Mixtape. Mixtape is easily one of the best demos that I played this last weekend. This one is published by Annapurna and developed by Beethoven and Dinosaur. They're known for The Artful Escape. I will say though, I wasn't all that fond of The Artful Escape. I found that game rather boring. But Mixtape is way different. When you watch the trailer, it'll make you feel like you're watching a who's that director that did Baby Driver? Those are the kind of vibes that I got. But at the same time, it kind of feels like a movie directed by John Hughes, just because
Edgar Wright.
Yes, Edgar Wright. Like Edgar Wright is like an expert in sound design with his films, and Mixtape had a lot of that going for it. It has a bunch of bands in here like the Smashing Pumpkins and a whole lot that I'm forgetting right now. But the soundtrack in this game is pretty awesome, and it's definitely going to be the highlight of the game. When you watch a trailer, like it's pretty much going to give you walking simulator vibes like Life is Strange, but this one just felt different, and it starts off firing on all cylinders. Like the game starts off with a skateboard scene going down a mountain highway as you avoid cars and all of a sudden try to get home. And then when you get home, that's when it has the Life is Strange vibe. Like you're walking around, you're examining stuff, you're talking to your friends, and they pretty much are like the '90s version of cool. When I walked out of my demo, I was talking to my friends. I was like, "Chia, what's up, dude?" So, yeah, that was the kind of vibe I got from it. And the main thing here was whenever you were walking around and looking at stuff, it would lead you back to a memory tied to a song, and the gameplay would change up there. So there was one scene where the main character was talking about her first kiss with her first boyfriend, and as soon as you get into that scene, yeah, the music changes, and all of a sudden you're controlling two tongues swirling around, and I was like, all right, that's a bit off-putting. There's another scene where yeah, you guys are just in a car, just cruising around and vibing along with the music. So you use the right stick to just headbang, and all of a sudden the cops are following you, so you gotta be chill. There's another scene where you're you're at a high school or college party that gets raided because obviously, like underage drinking, and all of a sudden you jump into a cart and find yourself in in a high speed police chase where you're on TV and you're in a cart, and all of a sudden you go from the mountain highway onto the pier and fall into the water. Like it's these kind of vibes that really separate like this game from any other indie walking simulator that I've played before. And this is probably now near the top of my most anticipated list for the rest of the year. It's that good. Next is Lego Party. Lego Party is exactly like Mario Party. The main difference being, yeah, there's Legos, and instead of a dice, you see sort of a random number generator that you just press X on, and all of a sudden it'll stop on that number. The game boards are pretty much all the same. You can land on spaces that'll give you coins. In Lego Party, they're studs. The studs will allow you to buy the golden bricks, which are going to be the stars in the game. And yeah, instead of mini games taking place at the end of every turn, it'll be at the start of every turn. When you get to the last few turns, like Mario Party, everything doubles. But then when you get to the last turn, everything doubles again. And then all of the spaces that are pretty much useless, like the spaces for the shops, are going to be replaced by chance spaces, which, in Mario Party, like they were the spaces where you land on that ultimately screw you. You can trade stars and things like that. And it's the same kind of thing here. The main thing that's different with the end is that there's no bonus stars. And, that's one thing that's made Mario Party like rather rough all this time. They fixed it in the end, but that's definitely something that they've improved upon. And yeah, this game looks solid. I had fun. I was playing with 3 other humans, and it's exactly like Mario Party except Legos. And also, like, this game is going to launch at $45, so it just shows that it'll be a pretty good budget title. And then the last one I want to talk about is Pragmata. If Capcom was making a game in development hell, it would be Pragmata. But everything about this game so far is shaping up real well. Like, if you've watched all the trailers, it was just vague. It was just about this little girl and this robot dude. But yeah, now we're really starting to see what it's really about. And offhand, it's a third-person shooter. When I started playing the demo and shooting at the enemies, I couldn't get anything done. But then all of a sudden, the little girl just hops on your back, and then she hacks the enemies, and then that's when you go ahead and cause damage to these enemies. And the hacking mechanism is actually something you're in full control of. Like, think of like those mini games from BioShock, or even something like, I don't know, Minesweeper, where you want to be able to highlight all these squares before finally getting to that hack square, so you can cause more damage that way. And on top of that, you have your typical third-person shooter puzzles and things to shoot at to worry about things. So yeah, in this demo, we had to open up a door that was behind 5 locks, where we had to jump around and find the different locks to unlock them, killing enemies using the hacking mechanism and whatnot. And then when we got to a boss, that was when the demo ended. So I was like, oh, come on. Anyway, yeah, like this was like the first game I got my hands on during Summer Game Fest, and I want to say this was probably the game that I was most impressed with. That being said, like it wasn't enough. We played for like 15 minutes, so I'm wondering how that boss ended up. And yeah, like the game definitely put up a good impression. This game is real. Looking forward to it. Capcom hasn't been missing, and it all goes to show it with their previews for Onimusha and Resident Evil. We also have those up on the site, but yeah, I'll just go ahead and leave that to our readers to go ahead and check out. But yeah, Summer Game Fest was definitely a good time. It was a little bit bogged down by the fact that we were in LA, which was happening at the same time as a whole bunch of the ice raids, and yeah, it added a whole lot of like uneasiness throughout the entire situation. But aside from that, the event went pretty well. Also went to the IOI showcase, which was kind of weird because I don't know if you guys watched that online, but it was just a weird way to show things as far as the order and just the run of show and whatnot. And then there was also the Death Stranding 2 World Tour with Jeff and Kojima. That was pretty fun. My main thing, though, is I'm not really looking forward to the game because I didn't really play the first one. But everything that they've shown, with the first 5 minutes, there's a part where you start off on the mountain and you're walking, and all of a sudden, like, you can hear the drum beats. Like, you can really tell the presentation was put a little thought into, and looking forward to that regard of it when the game comes out later this month. But yeah, that's about it.
All right, so yeah, let's get to some news here. And first up, we've got the PS Plus game catalog for this month. That'll be starting on June 17th here on Tuesday. First up, the biggest game here, FBC Firebreak for the PS5. Epic Remedy's new game that is sort of a spin-off of Control. A cooperative first-person shooter. I think you work with 3 people in your crew for this, and you are basically, I think, doing a bunch of different missions, trying to take out enemies and I assume accomplish different kinds of goals and such. So yeah, looks pretty neat. I'm curious to see sort of how weird it gets because it definitely looks like it gets pretty weird. So there's that. That's also on Game Pass if you have that. So there you go for that. Let's see, for PS4 and PS5, Battlefield 2042. As EA continues to lay down some road for the next Battlefield to come out.
Yeah.
By giving some more people a chance to play some recent Battlefield.
Yep.
So there you go for that one. Let's see, for PS5, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2. So you got a nice new VR and regular PS5 game here. So you got that to check out. Let's see. Then we got for PS4, The Hunter, Call of the Wild. Fairly straightforward hunting simulation game.
Yep.
So you can do that one. Let's see. For PS5 and PS4, we left Katamari Reroll plus Royal Reverie. The second game in the series, a very good game. When it came out originally. So if you haven't played it, or if you have, this is a good one to check out. Play some more of that. And then let's see, for PS5 and PS4, Ayuden Chronicles 100 Hero. So if you didn't play that originally when it came out, you can play some of it now.
Yep.
These sort of main JRPG, game that's heavily influenced by Suikoden from some of the same people that made that original game. So there's that. Let's see, PS5 and PS4, Train Sim World 5. If you need some more train sim in your life, this one is supposed to be a solid one. So there you go, and it has 50,000 pieces of DLC you can download if you want, various other trains and stops and such. So there you go. Then for PS5 and PS4, Endless Dungeon. It's sort of a roguelite, tactical action, tower defense kind of game. You can play solo or with some friends together. I've seen a little bit of this, but I don't really remember much about it. I think it's a top-down kind of game, so that seems neat. And then, for PS Plus Premium, the main classic new one that they're adding here is Deus Ex: The Conspiracy.
Yep.
For the PS2, which was supposedly a solid port in an era that was not a gimme.
Yeah.
For a lot of these kind of games. Especially because I think there's There's a different Deus Ex that was kind of console focused. That was a sequel to the original game.
Yeah.
That everybody that loved the original game hates.
Yep.
It's consoleized, and all that. So this one seems like it'll probably be pretty solid. But yeah, also I believe they had it Mist and Riven and such. So earlier this month. So still a handful of those there. To check out. So yeah, some solid stuff.
All right. Yeah, pretty got a couple of solid entries here that I'm definitely interested in looking into. Let me see here. That Firebreak game definitely looks wacky, and I want to take a look at it. Also, Katamari, because I haven't played Katamari in a long time, and I want to enjoy that again. And you know what? Ayuden Chronicles, I might take a look at that too.
Yeah.
And probably maybe Deus Ex as well. But yeah, it's got some pretty solid entries this month.
Yeah, FBC Firebreak was one of the big ones out of Game Fest. I actually didn't realize that they'd be getting the Plus Game Catalog treatment, so that's pretty cool. The game for me here is probably We Love Katamari Reroll, because I never played it, so I never got a chance to do that one, and I really enjoyed 2 a T. So I just want to jump back into Kata's Chronicles there. Speaking of Chronicles, Iron Chronicles 100 Heroes. I don't know if that's still like up on Game Pass, but that's a game I never finished and I never got too far in, so I might jump back into that here. Don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Let's see. We got one date here. Because everything else is in the Summer Game Fest stuff. This is a game called Earthian from developers Ancient and Bitwave Games, published by Limited Run Games for the physical versions. I think Super Deluxe for everything else. It'll be out July 31st on PS5, PS4, Xbox, Switch, and PC. This is a shmup designed to run on a Genesis, and it looks really well done, and features a soundtrack done by Yuzo Koshiro, legendary for the Streets of Rage games and a bunch of other Genesis soundtracks.
Yeah.
So it looks really good. Yeah. That'll be a pretty solid shmup for this summer.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Then let's see here. We had Nintendo announce a new Switch 2 game in their app, the Nintendo Today app. This is Splatoon Raiders, a spin-off game. I think it's, let's see, in the role of a mechanic, players will go on an adventure in the mysterious Spiralite Islands alongside the spectacular Deep Cut Trio.
Yeah, looks like this was originally going to be like another DLC for Splatoon 3, and they just sort of, some way through it, they were like, you know what, screw it, this is getting too big, we might as well just make it its own game.
Yeah. So there's that, but they also announced that they're going to have a free update for Splatoon 3. Let's see, on June 12th, so yeah, it's out now. The update features the Splatlands collection, new weapons, and clothing stuff. Let's see, 30 new weapon kits in this collection. A returning stage from the original Splatoon game on Wii U called Urchin Underpass will be added to the stage rotation. Plus, all weapon freshness caps will be raised, and players can earn badges. New stat will be added for the Anarchy Battle series called Series Weapon Power. Let's see, this update also improves the visuals and gives it a smoother frame rates in some of the locations. I believe like the social areas were running pretty poorly for this game. And so yeah, you can play with people on the Switch or Switch 2, which I didn't know there was any separation there, but yeah. So yeah, Splatoon 3 will get a bit of an upgrade.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. I'm a Splatoon fan, so, you know, I'm definitely interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure what this is or what Raiders is. Is that a campaign thing or?
Yeah, I'm guessing so. I mean,
it seems might be like a co-op campaign thing. I don't know. They don't really explain it too much here.
yeah. Like I said, there had been rumors that they had been working on a new DLC for Splatoon 3 that was called Splatoon Raiders or something along that line, and it looks like at some point the project just got so outsized that they were like, you know what, at this point we might as well just make it its own title. So
Yeah, except now it's a Switch 2 exclusive, which
yep.
Definitely not a bad thing to announce at this time, especially since yeah, it's crazy. I think by the end of the year we might have more Switch 2 exclusives than both Xbox or PS5. So
Yeah.
So there you go. Let's see. Konami had a press start showcase earlier this week, which they were talking a bit more about Silent Hill F and Metal Gear Solid Delta. But also teased at the end a Silent Hill remake from Bloober Team. Not really too much there, just showing a new little splash screen of Silent Hill in development with Konami and Bloober Team's logos on there. So that seems like that is in the works now after Silent Hill 2 did very well. So yeah, people will be able to check that one out now.
Yeah. Because yeah, they kind of nailed it with Silent Hill 2 against like all whatever, against all odds, especially what their previous output had been. Probably the only issue was with the remake was that because the game is a little larger overall than the original title was, they had to find a way to fill out the spaces. And that basically meant that now there were just a whole bunch more mannequins that you had to kill, which could get annoying at times, I will admit.
Yeah. Next up here, I believe also announced on their Nintendo Today app, Nintendo revealed that the Legend of Zelda film went out in a couple of years. That was supposed to hit March 27th, 2027.
Yeah.
Now will hit May 7th, 2027. So give it about a month, couple months in there. I believe because some other films moved out of the way. Like the one Avengers movie, so they're gonna move it more towards the summer, where more people are be able to go and see it. So yeah. Nintendo had their post on Twitter with Miyamoto starting it, saying this is Miyamoto, as he is wont to do on these tweets. So there you go. Not really too much there.
Yeah.
So I haven't even seen any shots of this. So
yeah,
maybe we'll see that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't really going to be news until we know who's on the cast.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that. But for more interesting Nintendo news, they announced the Switch 2 reached 3.5 million units sold in the first 4 days. So yeah, this is worldwide numbers. I believe in the US it was 1 million for that. So yeah, Nintendo kind of delaying this launch a good bit and kind of getting those units into the US and around the world as quickly as possible with all the terror stuff going on seems to have benefited them. In this way, there's more readily available than we've had on these consoles in a while. So much so, like Best Buy and Walmart and others have had multiple extra runs of selling units after launch. So great for people that missed out on initial pre-orders and maybe didn't want to wait in line on that midnight for it.
Yeah,
I've had more opportunities to get a Switch too, so that's good to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much been a stress-free launch. I know, obviously, like people who were there at midnight releases had to deal with things like various limits. I know I was at Best Buy, and I got there at around maybe 8:45, and they didn't really start selling them until 9. And there was a separate line. There was one for pre-orders, and there was one for people who pre-ordered that day or were trying to buy that day. And while that one was longer, it seemed like it was going a whole lot quicker than people who already had pre-orders. So I ended up going home at like 11:30 when I got mine. But yeah, either way, it's pretty cool to see people wake up in the morning and have no trouble getting theirs, and then it makes you wonder, oh, did Nintendo make too much, or is it not selling enough? Well, no, they sold 3.5 million, so I think they're good there. So good job to them on sort of meeting the launch demand.
Yeah, and as long as tariffs don't go too ridiculous, which who knows how that'll go, but they should be able to keep production going and kind of keep meeting demand for the time being. So that's good news. We have some other good news here. Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time, has surpassed 1 million copies sold, which is great to see for level 5.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying this, and yeah, they probably have one of the more reasonable upgrades for the Switch too.
Mm-hmm.
Then I get $60 for the Switch edition, and then it's like $250 for the upgrade, and that'll make it run a lot better when it's on Switch 2.
Yeah.
Probably more comparable to the PS5 and PC editions and Xbox editions. So yeah, just been nice to see more successful numbers here for level 5. Hopefully they can continue that with more good games. So there you go. Let's see. Yeah, we got some bad news. It's the bad news corner.
Yeah.
It seems like Ben's studio has laid off about 40 people.
Yeah.
Seems like partly due to the project they had canceled earlier this year. And they've been starting work on a new project in pre-production. And I guess they don't need to have a full production's worth of people in the studio on this thing. So they decided to Sony decided to lay off about 30% of their staff, which is about 40 people. So sad to see, but it doesn't seem like they're doing it just to cut people.
Yeah.
It's more of not wanting to be overstaffed in this part of this next game they're working on that doesn't need a ton of people on it just yet. So hopefully that game is the one that ends up going to release. So they can hire up more as they get into full production and get to release.
Yeah, rough news. Again, it doesn't seem like they were cutting people just to cut people. At the same time, it's as a business, you don't want to be paying people to do nothing. Not that they were doing nothing, but at the same time, you want to make sure that they have their projects in line.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. We do have some Embracer news.
Yep.
Some negative news, but not that negative. Figure that Lars Wingefors, CEO and founder of Embracer Group, our co-founder, is stepping down from that role, mostly to transition into a role focused on strategic initiatives, M&A, and capital allocation. He will also stepping down as of August 1st and is proposed to be appointed as executive chair of the board of Embracer. Replacing him as CEO will be the deputy CEO, Phil Rogers, who also leads Crystal Dynamics Eidos as CEO. So at least that's somebody that's fairly new to the organization. Nice to see him no longer being the top guy, though he'll be top of the board. Because there's been a lot of awful stuff happening over his tenure from when they did that 8chan AMA back in the day. To the aggressive M&A spree and then aggressive cutting of lots of teams and projects and jobs and such that followed their inability to get big selling games out. They seem to be in a better place at this point, but who knows if it's going to be a continuous thing. Because, a handful of bad games in a row will be big pressure on them, but for now they seem to be doing all right, so he can get out of that role and make more money with less stress, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, there's your Embracer news.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah. We got an update on the Splitgate 2 fiasco from Summer Games Fest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much this played. This was like obvious to you, Danrub, when you were there. The hat thing.
Yeah.
Where he came on stage with a MAGA style hat on his head that's made him look like a fucking idiot.
Yep.
And pretty much the general reaction has been, "You're a fucking idiot."
Yeah.
So much so a lot of the audience was willing to just delete the game and move on. Especially as they're announcing their big new addition was a battle royale mode
Yeah.
of the game that not many people were psyched about. And people also point out there was this weird and ridiculous $80 cosmetic bundle on the store that he claimed was some. He blamed it on a former head of monetization from Call of Duty who left the studio earlier this year. It's the guy that's not here anymore. That was his fault, not mine. So yeah, he put out a video on Twitter, to which they sent out as a press release a link to that tweet about this. That was a hilarious thing to see screenshots of that. Yeah, and it's like, boy, this is a dumb thing that backfired on them, and he admitted to it that it was, an attempt at a publicity stunt that would get more eyeballs on the game, but ended up making everything look worse. And yeah, the just result of a lot of stupid thinking here. And also, just in case you don't know this guy, people looked it up, and he's the son of the guy that founded TurboTax. So he's not like somebody that's ever really had to worry about money.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe his dad is like part owner of the studio that runs that makes Splitgate. So yeah, a lot of ridiculous stuff here. Try to claim there was no political intent, and only an idiots that is out of touch would think that, wearing that kind of hat on stage at Summer Game Fest. So yeah, very dumb situation all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is absolutely a mess here. Just to put this forward, this is one of the companies that I interviewed at during my unemployment, and it was for a community manager position. And I will say that had I, been there as a community manager, this is definitely not something I'd vote for. That being said, I don't know how much power their community manager actually has. I've seen his tweets, and the tweets that he makes, as opposed to the ones that are actually up on the Splitgate page, are very different. I don't know if you guys have actually seen the Splitgate 2 profile. It is very much trying to be Wendy's, and like any social media manager today will tell you that copying Wendy's is a stupid idea. So yeah, that is beyond bizarre. As for him, like trying to say that it's not a political statement, I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt here. Like when you hear him talk, he didn't really seem like a confident guy. He just seemed like he was just trying to like put people over in a different way, and it obviously just backfired. When I was sitting in the audience, I didn't quite see that it was a MAGA hat, but then again, I wasn't really paying much attention. So like, yeah, that's awkward. I also didn't expect a battle royale announcement. So while it's cool, I don't know if it necessarily fits Splitgate, especially with what it tries to do. Yeah, like I feel bad for the situation all around, but the thing that kind of like gives me ill remorse here is the fact that he went ahead and decided to gaslight just about anybody who makes any other FPS. Like, I'm sure you guys already talked about what Xbox did with Black Ops 7 last weekend. But, like, at the end of the day, you're still amongst your peers. You are also amongst other gamers there. And you really have to know your audience here. Like, the people who are at Summer Game Fest and care that much, or people covering it, are going to be those who have their hands dipped in every genre. At the end of the day, like, the people complaining about the political side of this are probably people who are not playing the game anyway. And, at the end of the day, like, that's not who you're going to cater to. But yeah, like the part that sucks here is Splitgate 2 actually is a good game. Like their whole thing of trying to be the anti FPS was totally believable. But when you go ahead and put forth this kind of messaging, any hope that you had of having a positive community is out the window. Because now, like, everybody's going to be showing their whole ass, whether they're far right, far left, and it wasn't there before, and now they are. So anytime this is ever going to be mentioned, you're going to see toxic stuff in the comments, no matter what you do, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very much reeks of a guy who thinks he doesn't really need anybody else's opinion. Like, it's very clear that he runs that account. And it's like, I would say generally that's a bad idea for most people running teams. There's only like a handful that I would say do a good job with that, and that's like Sean Murray with No Man's Sky. Though I would say also just have your own account separate from your game's account or your team's account. Don't just use that as your personal account, because it doesn't look good, especially when this whole thing happened and he's responding directly from that thing as part of the game's message. So yeah, an unfortunate thing, but not really too surprising. So yeah, let's get to some more news here. This is a report of how the development of Dragon Age: The Veilguard was kind of a huge mess from beginning to end. Not so much because of what any of the devs did, but more because EA kind of came in. They initially were working on a sequel, as you would expect.
Yeah.
That was back in like 2015. Single player game, all that kind of stuff. 2017, live service games getting big, and so EA wanted the game to be that and kind of focus on like the multiplayer side of Inquisition. Which then a few years of that development, they want to turn it back into a single player game. That then was their whole thing over the last few years, and especially at a certain point, kind of giving them an 18-month lead to convert the game back into a single player game. Which is generally bad for any game to do that with, much less this kind of game. Especially in this day and age where games take 4, 5, 6 years to make. To be like, oh, you got 18 months to do this. Apparently they had they did not have the proper amount of time to do a lot of pre-production to lay out what this change would mean, so they're kind of doing all this on the fly. Obviously people on the team were worried that this would end up causing lots of issues, which it kind of did, but also at a certain point, I guess they had people from the Mass Effect team at BioWare that were working on that over to help work on this, and that involved a lot of culture clash between the two teams, as well as when they started laying off people there, and all that. Made for kind of a big chaotic mess of a situation that it's surprising the game turned out as good as it did.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear, the game actually is good. Like, in spite of everything, the game actually came out as a very solid game. Is it the best Dragon Age game? No. I would definitely say it's better than Dragon Age 2 was. It's not quite as good as Inquisition was, though. But this game sort of had just a bunch of stuff going against it when it came out. Like Chris said, this was a game that went through a bunch of different stages of development because EA couldn't make up their mind of what they wanted from this game. And anybody who's played that game can tell it. Because there are parts of it that definitely feel rushed and unfocused. I've talked a lot about how the first beginning part of that game, the prologue, is shit. It's terrible. It's trying to convey this really major event that's happening, and it just does not pull it off at all. But once you get past that part of the game, it's actually pretty good. But the game had like I said, a bunch of games going against it. Biggest thing probably going up against it is that during the time it was in development, we ended up getting stuff like Baldur's Gate 3, which basically made all the other games that came out that year seem less in comparison. And you had Veilguard coming out the following year, and it just didn't work. It's Baldur's Gate 3 was so good of a game that every other game seemed lesser in comparison because of it. And it also didn't help that, Dragon Age as a franchise was specifically created as originally it was intended to be BioWare's sort of spiritual successor to the original Baldur's Gate series. And I mean, it eventually went off in a different direction entirely, but you compare that to the stuff that you could do in BG3, and it's like it had the misfortune of coming out into a world where BG3 existed. And honestly, it kind of sucks because BioWare really has needed a win over the last few years, because they've released 3 underperforming games in a row at this point. And this time, I mean, you can at least say it wasn't BioWare's fault, it was EA's fault. And BioWare was trying to make the best of a shitty situation. But, EA is notorious for absorbing studios and then dissolving them if they can't meet, what they need financially. So, I'm just saying, BioWare, if really be putting hard work into Mass Effect 4, please.
I think the damning thing is that, like you guys said, I've never played it, so I have no horse in this race. But the game is good. It's sitting at an 82 Open Critic, 80 Metacritic, and the fact that it ended up being that good despite going through such a tumultuous development period, I think says a lot about the developers in that studio.
Mm-hmm.
And EA laid them all off. So,
yep.
I know that this is all of a sudden going to put a whole lot of pressure on whatever the next Mass Effect ends up being, and that's really unfortunate. But I do hope that the people on Veilguard are on that team, because they'll need it. Hopefully, they can go ahead and build off of the problems there. But the fact that it was good despite everything there is the impressive thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, hopefully these people land on their feet. It is no longer the home run that it used to be. Like in 2019, if you were getting laid off, it was a good thing. Because you can just, collect severance and all of a sudden end up somewhere else. Now, you have seniors competing with people out of college, and it's just rough. So, hopefully everyone that was part of this process is, doing all right. Hope you're doing okay. But yeah, it's pretty damning that, again, it's impressive that it was good, and I just hope that things end up for the best here. And yeah, it's just sad slating for EA as well.
Yep. So yeah, we have one more bit of industry news here, and it's actually good news. The video game voice actor SAG-AFTRA strike is officially, or at least tentatively, over after a tentative deal has been reached. Seems like it has a lot of good things in here. So we'll see if this ends up getting ratified and fully approved.
Mm-hmm.
But it's great to see. This delivers historic wage increases of over 24% for performers, enhanced health and safety protections, industry-leading AI provisions requiring transparency, consent, and compensation for the use of digital replicas. I believe there's also a bit in there about essentially if they have to go on strike again, they can essentially pull permissions to use any sort of AI stuff for games at will. So a lot more control over that than they have had previously. So that's great news. Hopefully that ends up working out well for everybody. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm glad that, the union managed to hang tough and they managed to power through and get a pretty good deal. Like, considering all the layoffs we've had to talk about the last couple of years, there is, the good reminder that there are parts of the industry that are organizing, standing up, and actually achieving their goals, whatever they are. So,
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good. But yeah, we're gonna do a quick Summer Game Fest wrap up here. I have links to sort of summaries of all did not cover last week. Not really gonna go through everything in here. But there are some interesting things that happened. Particularly in like the wholesome direct. There was an interesting game here at the time. A game called Milano's Odd Job Collection. They very much had the look of a PS1 game, and found out afterwards that actually that is a PS1 game. PS1 game that never got brought over to the West,
Yeah.
but they've finally are doing so for PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC later this year. As you would expect, it's basically kind of a minigame collection of sorts, as Milano is a young girl who's wanting to make some money and help out some people. Is doing a bunch of different things and got some different like mini games to them, different little bits of gameplay that has a really nice look to it for a game that is actually a PS1 game versus one that is just so yeah, there's as you would expect, this has a lot of like slice of life games, chill crafting and building games and all that kind of stuff. That is pretty nice looking. There's another game here that got a discounty, which is basically a game where you're running a store, like a discount store, I believe, and you're kind of managing all that, setting prices, all that kind of stuff. Has a really nice look to it. A lot of this stuff has demos on the Steam store for now, so I'm looking forward to checking some of that out. There's one that's interesting called Vending Dokkan Cozy Kiosk, where you run a vending machine empire in Japan. So you have those kind of style of vending machines. So yeah, it's a really nice look, and yeah, they have all the trailers here, so you can check that stuff out as needed. So yeah, a lot of neat ones. Then yeah, the women-led game showcase has some more cool and interesting games, as you'd expect. There's one interesting one, Wander Stars. That is a JRPG style game that'll be out August 1st.
Has a very strong 90s anime aesthetic going along with it.
Yeah. That looks nice. That'll be Switch and PC. But yeah, if you want to see a bunch of upcoming games that have women as the heads of the studios, these are some interesting looking games for that. So yeah, there you go. There's a Latin American game summer showcase that also had a bunch of cool stuff for this. I watched that one. Was like, yeah, all these look pretty cool. Neverway's featured on there because that is a Latin American studio. Bunch of other stuff here as well. Yeah, Wander Stars also shows up there as well. So that is cool. Yeah, not really gonna go into too much else that is on here. There's the trolley problem. That thought experiment, but builds it out as a full kind of ridiculous game. That's pretty neat. So there's that. The Southeast Asian Game Showcase. that had some more cool stuff here. Some of which were sort of, you're getting a lot of crossover here. Some stuff that has already been out for a bit and getting updates. But they did show off Coffee Talk Tokyo. So that new game in that series is coming out in the near future. I think they have a demo out now. So
yep,
that's fun.
Oh yeah, definitely am excited to play that.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's like Until Then is coming to Switch on the 26th. So pretty soon. Yeah, Axe of Blood got shown off here as well. There's that. There's Frost Games Fest, which if you don't get the name, it's about Australian developers. Because in Australia right now it's winter.
Yeah.
So like when devs announce spring and all that, that's a very northern hemisphere thing. But they do have one here that's labeled as coming out in spring of this year, and you might be like, but spring already ended. And it's like, not in Australia. So it means autumn. But they have a couple of interesting games here. There's one that is essentially, I'm trying to see if I can find it. Yeah, it's called Winnie's Hole. It's based on Winnie the Pooh. But it's not what you might be expecting, because essentially you're like this weird monster blob with Winnie's head that is exploring the insides of Winnie the Pooh's body. So that's like a roguelite puzzle-ish kind of game. So there's that. There's a lot of weird-ass games that you would expect from people in Australia. There's one, I think it's a dog chaos game called Doggy Don't Care. Much like all the recent ones have been cat focused, like Little Kitty Big City kind of thing. So there's that. The PC Gaming Showcase had a few. There's Oasis. That's spelled like away and then sis. That's the new 17-bit game. There's Galaxy and that kind of stuff. Is their new thing. It's like a dungeon brawler. It's coming out at some point. To PS5, Xbox, and PC. It looks really neat. We got a date for, or a month for Prince of Persia coming to 2.0, and that'll be in August. And still on PC, so I imagine it'll come to console at some point after that. And then we got a date for Wheel World. It's coming out July 23rd. And that's a really interesting game. That's the kind of open world-ish game where you're on a bike cycling around with a bike that's inhabited by a spirit. So it's a bit weird, but this is the new game from Messoff, the studio that did Nidhogg, Nidhogg games. So there's that looks really neat. And there was a Black Voices in Gaming showcase with a bunch of interesting games as well. Some of which are already out, like South of Midnight. South of Midnight. What else was on here that was already out? Spirit City Lo-Fi Sessions. And Aerial Knight's Drop Shot. But there's a bunch of others that are not out yet, like Beatdown City Survivors. That's a really neat looking game. There's a new Yasuke game. It's a 3D anime action game for that. Reloaded got shown off here. That looks really nice. Bunch of games here. Looking really nice. You can check out the links. They give some summaries and such of what they're about. And a bunch of them have trailers and such. Yeah, that'll kind of end up doing it for Summer Game Fest here. A lot of good games coming out in the near future, especially if you're into indie games.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of good and interesting games. So I think that'll be the wrap up here for Summer Game Fest. Now we'll just to check them out when they come out.
Yep.
Play these thousands of demos that are on Steam, at least for another day or so. So yeah, that'll be it. Thank you to Brandon and Danner for joining this week.
Always.
We'll be back next week with a new slate of news and games to talk about. And if you enjoy the show, let friends and family know to check it out and select strangers that also managed to get a Switch 2 after launch. Amongst all the chaos of everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
So thank you all for tuning in. Hope you have a good week ahead. We will see you all next time. Have a good one.
Bye.
See you.